America's breaking point may have just arrived, and once again, it's happening in Chicago. That's right, guys. The same city that's been bleeding from years of failed leadership is now erupting. Federal agents under siege. I'm talking ICE vehicles rammed, rocks flying, and tonight, federal sources are confirming what we've been warning about for months. Mexican cartels have just put literal bounties on U.S. immigration officers. But here's the part that's really going to make your blood boil. While President Donald J. Trump's Department of Homeland Security tracks the cartel networks in Chicago, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's out there blaming ICE, not the attackers, not the cartels, not Antifa. He's blaming ICE. So how do we go from protecting our agents to politicians protecting the criminals that are targeting them? How did Chicago, once the heart of American industry, become ground zero for cartel money, Antifa mobs, and the open rebellion against federal law? Well, today I want to go ahead and break it all down for you guys, from the cartel cash trails to the radical networks enabling it, to why J.B. Pritzker's anti-ICE crusade just backfired harder than he had ever imagined. Because, folks, this isn't a protest anymore. This is war. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear, it's not a rumor, it's not speculation. This is a federal admission. Multiple reports are now confirming that Mexican drug cartels have placed actual bounties up to $50,000 on the heads of American ICE and DHS agents. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. These are the same men and women sworn to defend our borders. They're now being hunted for cash. These are American citizens in uniform, targeted not overseas, but right here on U.S. soil. Now, we've already got word that federal officials under President Donald Trump's Department of Homeland Security are calling it unprecedented. It's psychological warfare. These cartels aren't just smuggling fentanyl. They're buying influence, funding chaos, and they're using activists as cover. Hit the like button and subscribe, guys. And what makes it worse? While Trump's DOJ is tracking down cartel-linked networks in Chicago, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's out there blaming ICE. I know. I don't understand why he's doing it, but he's doing it. Okay. He's not condemning the cartels. He's condemning the agents. Now, this isn't leadership. This is sabotage. And every time a governor, a pundit, a protester vilifies federal enforcement, they make those bounties more effective because they strip away the agent's humanity. That's not politics anymore. This is complicity. So now here's where things get even darker, believe it or not, right? Federal sources are saying Antifa-aligned networks and cartel operatives are moving in parallel. Let me repeat that. Antifa and the cartels side by side, exploiting Chicago's chaos to undermine federal law enforcement. Now, you've seen it before. The masked agitators, wearing the black masks, chanting abolish ICE, waving foreign flags, setting up roadblocks. But now behind these crowds, real money is flowing in. It's moving. Cartel money. Intelligence briefings suggest that communication channels between Antifa cells and cartel-linked intermediaries are sharing location data, protest schedules, and even routes of ICE patrols. They're actually using these demonstrations as cover to surveil, to ambush, and to overwhelm federal response times. It's not random outrage. It is coordinated disruption. And so while Trump's administration is quietly deploying task forces to expose it, Chicago officials pretend it's all just free speech. They call it peaceful protest. But folks, when radicals and cartels operate in the same streets with the same target, ICE, that's not a protest. That is an alliance of anarchy. And the blood on the ground, well, this is what happens when the left's rhetoric meets cartel cash. Now, millions of seniors today across the United States are getting a message from their doctor saying, we will no longer accept your insurance next year. Call Chapter to get your new coverage. Now, here's a little secret, guys. Thousands of people are already calling Chapter about Medicare. And when that many people move in the same direction, there's usually a reason, okay? This is why I partner with Chapter, because they're the team that most people trust with their Medicare choices. Now, one viewer, she said to me, I called because everyone else was talking about it, and I'm glad I did. So let me ask, are you going to stay outside the herd, or are you going to join what most people are already doing? Now, most people, they're dialing that phone number right there at the bottom of your screen, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. That phone number again is 909-563-8279. Now, I want to talk about what's really setting Chicago off. The ICE attack that mainstream media just called a crash. Yeah, two Venezuelan nationals, both illegally in the country, rammed their SUV directly into a Homeland Security vehicle, guys. Now, one already had a deportation order from back in 2024, but check this out. Federal agents reported being surrounded by a crowd as rocks started flying. That's right, tear gas was deployed only after officers were cornered. But here's the part that they don't want you to hear. Surveillance footage actually shows ICE was chased for nearly 30 minutes around that neighborhood before the collision. This wasn't an accident. This was a hunt. Local police confirmed that the suspects were foreign nationals, yet outlets like ABC, CNN, MSNBC, they immediately ran headlines implying that ICE initiated the chase or caused the crash. They then scrubbed the attacker's background. They blurred the lines between criminals and enforcement. Ladies and gentlemen, that ain't journalism. That is narrative laundering. And when you hide who's attacking your agents, you're emboldening the next one who wants to try to do the same thing. So every time these attacks happen, the corporate press, they run the same playbook: blur, deflect, invert the truth. They call it a clash, not an attack. They frame ICE as agitators, protesters as victims, and then they cry human rights. Meanwhile, the federal agents are bleeding on American pavement. Just look at ABC's coverage of the Chicago ramming. Headline reads, "Federal agents involved in crash." There's no mention that those same agents were targeted, right? CNN calls it a protest gone wrong. NBC claims tensions escalated. Folks, tensions didn't escalate. Criminals attack law enforcement. But that's the power of the chyron, guys. Those few words at the bottom of the screen shape millions of minds. They'll show a crying mother or a baby in a stroller to stir emotion. Meanwhile, they're hiding the gang tattoos, the stolen plates, the federal warrants. The left doesn't fight with facts. They fight with feelings. They know that a well-timed tear gas photo does a whole lot more damage to ICE than any bullet ever could. This is why media framing isn't just dishonest, it's dangerous. Now, here's where the story really kind of takes a turn from bad to absolutely unbelievable. So instead of condemning these attacks on federal agents, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker doubles down, threatening to prosecute ICE agents. Yes, you heard that right, guys. While President Trump's Department of Justice is trying to protect the men and women on the front lines, J.B. Pritzker is openly talking about turning them into criminals. He says the tables will turn someday. Translation: once Democrats take back power, they will come for the very people enforcing the law. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that ain't leadership. This is revenge politics. And it's really no coincidence that this rhetoric exploded right as the reports of cartel bounties surfaced. So while President Trump strengthens ICE, J.B. Pritzker is playing defense for criminals. And folks, when governors start protecting the lawbreakers over law enforcers, this is when a republic starts to crumble from the inside. Now, drop a Chicago down below if you've ever visited Chicago or you plan to visit in the future. If you never plan on visiting Chicago, just drop a never down below, because I'm almost scared about where Chicago's headed now. So meanwhile, Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson is busy polishing his sanctuary city badge, saying protecting illegals is it's defending humanity. Well, let's just rewind just a year ago, okay? Under Biden's chaos, the same mayor, he was begging Washington to stop sending more migrants. He said that the city was overwhelmed. It was out of money and it was out of housing. Now that Trump's in charge, he's suddenly the face of resistance? Give me a break, guys. This is what hypocrisy looks like in real time, okay? You got Chicago shelters overflowing, police are underfunded, and homeless veterans are sleeping outside while City Hall hands free hotel rooms to people who broke into the country. Then, when citizens complain, Mayor Brandon Johnson calls them anti-human? No, sir, they are pro-law. In fact, the administration of Chicago is building its entire political identity around defying Trump's border crackdown because chaos gets them attention and attention keeps them in power. It's not compassion, it's calculated anarchy wrapped in virtue signaling. Now, here's the part that nobody's talking about, okay? I'm talking about the digital battlefield. So while federal agents fight cartels in the street, left-wing activists are hunting them online. I'm talking about platforms like TikTok, Amazon's Ring, and a network called Stop ICE are being weaponized to track law enforcement in real time. Activists are uploading confirmed ICE sightings, posting license plates, even streaming agents' faces to tens of thousands of followers. TikTok calls it community safety. I call it what it is. It's digital doxing of federal agents. Now think about that, okay? A foreign-owned app controlled by Beijing, now fueling mobs in Chicago to chase American officers. This is psychological warfare 2.0, algorithm-driven and influencer-approved. These videos get millions of views, each one turning federal enforcement into a trending villain. And the craziest part, Well, while China profits off of ad revenue, American cities burn from the chaos that their app ignites. It's not activism, it is foreign assisted subversion. And if that wasn't surreal enough, look who's joining the mob. Not the poor, not the desperate. I'm talking about the elite. We're talking about Tesla driving, Whole Foods shopping liberals live streaming protests from their $110,000 SUVs crying about oppression while sipping oat milk lattes. You know what I'm saying, guys? They're showing up in designer sneakers, Louis Vuitton, waving every flag except the American one. And when the tear gas flies, they pull out tennis rackets. Yes, literal tennis rackets to smack canisters back at the law enforcement. Hollywood couldn't write satire this rich. This is what happens when activism becomes performance. And then it's not about principle, it's about content. Same people that are demanding open borders are the first to wall off their gated neighborhoods. And while they hashtag justice, the cartels they accidentally empower are posting real bounties, real threats against American agents. The left calls that solidarity. I call it moral bankruptcy. Now, for all of the talk about peaceful protests, I want to talk about the real criminals that ICE is chasing. Just last month, federal agents arrested 37 Venezuelan gang members tied to a cartel faction known as kidnappings, murderers, and human trafficking right there in Chicago. Now, you would think that the headlines would say, ICE dismantles violent gang, but instead, silence. These are the same gangs smuggling women across the border, forcing them into unspeakable acts and flooding our streets with fentanyl and illegal weapons. And yet, the same media sympathy goes to the ones that are throwing rocks at ICE, not the agents that are saving victims from the traffickers. Now, President Trump's DOJ has made it crystal clear. The cartel war is domestic now. They're not just crossing the border, they're operating in our cities. And every sanctuary policy, every abolish ICE protest makes their job easier. Chicago isn't a sanctuary anymore. It is a staging ground. And so while federal agents are risking their lives dismantling human trafficking rings, J.B. Pritzker and his allies, they're busy pushing the people that are protecting us. So where does this all lead is the real question that most people are wondering right now, right? I mean, do you agree with me? Drop an agree down below. When local politicians side with the criminals, when media glorifies mobs, when cartels put bounties on law enforcement, what do you think's going to happen next? We are literally watching the early stages of an internal Cold War. Law versus lawless, truth versus narrative, America versus anarchy. Chicago's just the spark, but this fire is spreading. In fact, the Illinois governor talks about resistance. The mayor praises defending humanity, and activists are screaming abolish ICE. So what happens when half the country obeys the law and the other half cheers for those who are breaking it? The truth is, civil unrest isn't coming. It's already here. I mean, every rock thrown at ICE, every distorted headline, every sanctuary order, it all pushes this country closer to a confrontation that no one truly wants. And while globalists and radical politicians play their games, ordinary Americans are caught in the crossfire. President Trump's administration is the only thing standing between chaos and collapse. And this is exactly why they're trying so hard to demonize it.